show tonight, and we got two over in Newcastle. Safe win, but a good start to the campaign. Dom, what did you feel?
Uh, I'm actually pretty happy with this win. I mean, obviously, I'm happy. It's a big win, and I don't want to say we expected the win, but I thought that we can win this. I said that in the podcast as well. I said, okay, we're going into this with some people missing, but that should not be an excuse, right? I think we have enough quality to go forward and actually beat Newcastle, and that's what we did. And I think bar the opening 15 in the first half, maybe opening 10 or 15 in the second half, we were mostly not really
In control.
cruising, but in control. In control. I think in control is the right way to explain this, to describe it. And I think that's the way you tackle these teams that want to go at you constantly because they cannot do that for the whole 90 minutes, right? They will do that in spurs. If you can control those moments, if you control those spurs the way we did tonight, I think that's the recipe to how to beat. We talked a lot about matching them in physicality or playing with the ball and so on and so forth. Flick kind of went with something that's in between. And we can talk about that a bit later with Araujo and De Jong in the lineup as well. But I think all went mostly according to plan. I think that it's a shame it's not a clean sheet. I really wanted a clean sheet, but then it gave us this late goal gave us 5 minutes of proper test because when you get a goal that late, obviously you get a spur of energy and the way you control that moment is also very important for us because remember back when we faced Inter, we couldn't control those moments in the final couple of minutes. Tonight, we managed that really well. So to me, this is progress. Over to you. What's your thoughts?
No, I felt that Flick was pragmatic. I thought that I saw a pragmatic side of Flick. I think the it was a much deeper line throughout. It wasn't that high. He was pragmatic about the choices with Araujo and how he set up the defense. And it was like the team expected that the first 30 minutes would be insane press, and then they had a
Mm.
game plan to manage that, and you could see that they were not trying to force the initiative. They're trying to just knock the ball around, take the tempo out of the game, keep it as simple as possible, and
Mhm.
absorb those 30 minutes, and they did that. And then slowly you could see them, getting into the game, a lot more coordinated attacks, a lot more getting forward, and so on. And while they didn't dominate end to end, I think the whole game plan was around containment and take
Mhm.
advantage. Those one or two sessions where you actually get a chance, and that's what Rashford did. I think his second goal
Mhm.
was obviously completely out. Like, you can't expect goals like that every day, but
Yeah.
those things happen. That's what football is. So, I mean, we got those two goals. I do buy your point that I think we switched off a little bit after that, and I mean that. I mean, Gordon scored, but I thought Kunde was a little bit ball watching. He could have. I don't know whether he could have intercepted that, but yeah, felt like it was. It was as a sudden counter. You could see the build up. So maybe there's something to learn. But overall, I think what I liked or not liked, what was different was that last year, Champions League games were like, okay, 0 to 100 for 90 minutes,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Mhm.
this was a much more contained affair in terms of how they managed the game, managed the time, how much they ran, how much they didn't ran.
Yeah.
A lot of it was a lot less running, from a press perspective and what have you. I don't know. Rafinha was good, but probably he needs a little bit more sharpness. What I felt. Furman didn't have a very good night, but I think De Jong was like incredible. I think Araujo put in
Yeah.
a solid shift. I think Pedri was great, and they could manage like just the circulation of the ball and what have you. So overall, good way to learn on how to contain these away games and contain the situations
Yeah.
and still come out of the win without having to go at full tempo. Because I don't think the team ever went in full tempo today. That was my take.
Yeah, it's all about picking your battles, I think. And with Newcastle, if you really go full tempo, as you say, I think it only hurt you in the long run. Yes, they try to go full tempo, but then we try to play that game. So the way they pressed was really good. They obviously knew how to target our weaker areas, and they did push the ball to the left. And Gerard Martin struggled a
It was
lot in that
mostly
opening
Gerard
10.
Martin throughout.
Yeah, it was all the press was on him, and he was the one who had the ungrateful task of getting the ball from the first third to the second third. And obviously he's not Balde. He cannot really break the press through running and nor through passing. Really, he did have some good moments evading the press later on when the when kind of the stamina fell off and concentration fell off. But then in the opening 15 minutes, he was really against the ropes. He was on the ropes constantly, and that was our weak point. But then Barca never really
But we
gave
kind
up
of
this
expected that,
idea.
didn't we? Didn't
Exactly,
we? That
exactly. I
it
think
would be Gerard Martin would be the weak point.
I think so. I think so. And I think Flick knew this would happen because Barca never gave up this idea of playing that way. See, if we had suddenly changed our way and started launching ball after ball forward, then that would signify, okay, maybe Barca are realizing something's not going according to plan. However, they
Yeah.
stuck to their guns and we kept trying that. Despite Martin's struggle in certain moments, we kept trying that and we kept trying play around Newcastle, play through the press, play around the press, and yes, sometimes we launch the ball forward, but that's normal, right? It's nothing out of the ordinary. So I think that this was according to plan. Flick took this into
Yeah, I
consideration.
think I
He
think this
knew.
was purely a very planned. Like they had a plan,
Hmm.
they stuck to the plan,
Yeah.
they executed the plan, they got the win, they
So
left.
and one
Um,
other thing that we have to mention here, and you alluded to it, Dev, earlier, which I liked, De Jong and Pedri. Obviously, we don't have to talk about Pedri a lot because Pedri does these things. Even in the 97th minute, he
yeah,
controls the aggressiveness with 1 2 touches. He just makes it vanish. But also look how he looks for De Jong. And a lot of our attacks go through De Jong. And it's a very ungrateful position to be in when you are Frankie because people expect the ridiculous from you, but also they expect you to be like Busquets and be invisible but still impactful. But you can't have both always, right? So when Frankie plays like this, he's not. You don't really see the shiny things he does, but he does a lot of things. The way
no, I
that
think he did
we
the
play
basics very well today.
exactly when you play against a Newcastle who will press the living hell out of you, they will throw everything at you. You need a Frankie that midfield. I think Frankie for Castle was a big, big choice by Flick and a
Today it
great
was
choice.
good. I would agree with you. I don't think with the physicality of Linton and everybody is. I think Newcastle has like I don't know 5 6 foot 5 inch players. I think Castro would have struggled. Not that it's a shade on
Oh
him.
yeah,
He's a very technical player,
oh
and he
some.
did
Hmm.
come in the end to just kill time. But I think
Mhm.
from just managing the physicality, just managing that space, and just doing the basics right, I think Frankie did a lot of right today.
Absolutely. Because we keep talking about this. We have to defend with the ball. We have to take the ball away from Newcastle. We have to calm down, snuff out their momentum. You don't do that with circulating the ball quickly. You do it by just killing the game sometimes. You just sometimes have to take the ball and take the extra touch. See, guys, yes, Frankie can hog the ball. We keep talking about the hogging the ball. But sometimes an extra touch is exactly what you need in those situations because when they are going at you 100 miles per hour, and if you try and fight fire with fire in that situation, you likely get burned because they are made for that game. They have three of their forwards, so all their forwards were outlets. They were
Yeah.
waiting for that game to happen. They were waiting for the game to become a basketball or tennis match. And that's when they thrive. But no, we stuck to our guns.
Yeah, it
Frankie
was
was
a bit
thinking,
of a a messy middle. Many times it was not
yeah,
free
it
flowing
was.
champagne football, so
Oh
as to
no,
say.
yeah.
But
Hmm.
that's what you would expect, and that's what we got. But it was good to see that we had a very pragmatic plan to counter that because sometimes Barca can be a little bit like okay, whatever, and then
Hmm.
it becomes harder against these kind of teams. But today I never felt that we had huge that there was a lot of danger. Yes, there were a couple of things. Garcia made a couple of really good saves. I think
Yeah.
Araujo was on point. So yes, those things happen, and those things will happen in every game. But overall, I don't think Newcastle created a lot from that perspective. We could manage them, contain them. So that was good. I think so. Tactically, I think Flick has thought a lot. What I felt was that this was a very different Barca kind of an attitude in a Champions League game than what we saw last year. And probably
Yeah.
that he's doing that because of his personalities have changed, team is different, and so on. But that's what I felt that it was a very different kind of an approach, and he had thought about this approach before going in, and he implemented that.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I liked was generally because of and you and I have talked about it, like because of our press, we have to run so much, and it does
Hmm.
cause the concern of injuries and so on. Today it was much more controlled. I'm not saying that we didn't press, but it was controlled. Everybody was not like running 50 miles an hour. to just win the second balls or what have you. So yeah, I think result wise it's incredible to win at an away game at St James Park, especially given Barca's like the evolution over the last 5 years. So it's a great win, great start to the campaign, and what a night for Rashford. He will get so much confidence from this one, and we needed that. And if this can reflect back into La Liga, that's its weight in that's absolutely worth its weight in gold, because players like Rashford, they thrive on this confidence, and 2 goals in a
Mhm.
Champions League away game is really going
Mhm.
to give him a lot of confidence to go out there.
Yeah, and that's what he does because his game, overall game, I mean, there were moments, good moments from Rashford. Don't get me wrong, but he was a lot. A lot of the game was up and down a bit. He wasn't really making the right decisions in the final third. He was not really hitting the ball properly. It was a lot of, I don't know. It was just clumsy, and somehow he wasn't doing things with confidence. And then, as you say, out of nothing, he can do things, and that's the beauty of Rashford. He can have those kind of games, and he can still produce moments of magic because Rashford has that game making quality. And I was just tweeting about this earlier because I was seeing Rashford, not slander, but I was seeing a lot of criticism about Rashford on the timeline, and I was like, okay, yes, that is true, but Rashford can pop off at any moment, and that's what he did. And I think in Europe, and to your point, Dev, it's just for a different Barca, and that to me is a good thing because for Europe you have to prepare different, right? You can't expect to be playing the same way you play in La Liga against European competitions because it's a different type of game, right? It's a game that doesn't really accommodate for many mistakes or many risks. And we are a team that likes to take risks, but it's not a bad idea to sometimes dose it down and maybe take a slightly more cautious approach. Which, to your point, maybe with the lineup itself, it was visible from Flick. So it's a good thing for me.
It's a
This
great
was
win. I
probably
think, yeah, this was very tactically coached, sound. Here's how
hmm
we win there. Let's go and
yeah.
do this, get those 2 points or 3 points, and just get back home, right? I think
hmm
that's what Flick went with, and he did that. Let's take this comment from Killer Squad. Okay. Yes, there is this banter around that Barca players are small, the PL is very physical, so they
Yeah,
will
yeah.
boss over us, and we read that. And my take is, yes, we can dismiss it because now we have won the game, but it is true. Sometimes physicality or a high press does make Barca suffer, and we have seen that, whether it's PL or La Liga or what have you. Um, but I think as the team matures and they learn how to deal with these, like I think they suffered like that against Inter, and you
Mm.
all saw that game. We saw that game. So again, also sooner they suffered. So it there is merit to that conversation, correct? The rest is banter that we will give us the high line, and Pedri can't do this here and Messi can't do somewhere in Stoke. What those are just banter, but I think there's point in this. There's also a bubble, and if you look at I think Spanish team's performance this in the first round. I think Madrid went rough and they got a result, but it wasn't easy. I think Simeone yesterday, like Atleti last 1 hour wasn't very good, but they came back into the game and then they lost. I think if you take all of that into consideration, there is a point. It's not been that easy for the Spanish teams. That said, though, I think Barca today had a very concrete game plan and then they executed it very well. And
hmm
the physicality or the press that you talk about did not really have the impact that they probably thought that it would have because of our pragmatic setup and nature.
Yeah, I think the whole physicality and Barcelona in Premier League, it's see when you're scouting players, and this is a rule that most scouts will, or most scouts, some scouts will take on when you're scouting youth players. Physicality or athleticism is something that you'll look at first and foremost. Why? Because athleticism is highly transferable. So when you look at leagues that are lower leagues and higher leagues, one thing that can always be there is the athletic nature of the players, right? If the player is capable of dominating his duels, if he's strong and fast and so on and so forth, those traits are generally transferable, and those traits usually mean that the player can perform or can be competitive at a higher level as well. That's why the Premier League fans or fans, I don't know, other fans or other Barcelona fans insist that we can be bullied, that we can be physically dominated, and so on and so forth. However, technicality as such that we have is best seen in a more collective level. The way we handle the pressure, the way we avoid the pressure. You see the little intricate passes that we do, third man runs, or maybe the triangles that we make, and then you outplay the press. That's when you see the technical levels of our players and the little the decision making situations that we have. Pedri turning a player one way or the other. It's one of those things that is better seen in a collective like, rather than an individual level. Now, physicality and athleticism is something that is highly valuable, and this is generally what you look at with younger players when you're looking for players that you think might be able to transition to a higher level of competitiveness. So it's kind of like that. But to say that Barca cannot or Pedri cannot play against English teams is obviously ridiculous because we Pedri. The thing with Pedri is he doesn't depend on anyone, right? He doesn't need the collective to be at a high level for him to perform at a high level. So Pedri always plays at a standard which is very high, and then depending on the team level, then it can fluctuate. But then Pedri is always a constant, right? And to your point, Martin without Rashford, yes, this is one of the things that Rashford will have to probably work on because he's not known for
Yeah,
his
I would agree with
excessive
that.
pressing. Yeah, tracking back or pressing. He's not really. It's not his ability that's under question, but just the willingness and maybe even the stamina because he can run out of the gas. Today he was kind of carried by momentum a lot, which is good, obviously, but it won't happen every game. To Dev's point, he won't score those screamers every game, so he won't be able to be all fired up all the time. However, Flick demands a certain level of intensity and involvement out of position as well. So this will be the big challenge for Rashford if he somehow plans to get into the starting lineup more often than not, which at the moment he's not there yet. Obviously, he's still behind Rafinha, and obviously Lamine Yamal and Lewandowski are there as well.
And I think
So
somewhere, I mean, we've talked a lot about Gerard Martin, and obviously, I mean, the weaknesses and the strengths have been talked about. Now, the question is, it's not that we are playing Gerard Martin because we have a better option. We don't have the money, we don't have the ability to procure uh, 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 the level of player that we would want to, given the
mhm.
situation that we have. So once Balde goes out, and it will happen, so it's once I'm sure it's going to happen 2 or 3 times in the season, because he's never really kept fit for a long period of time, like from the time that he has played. So it's going to happen again. Uh, he is the best option that we have. We don't really have any other option. Yes, somebody, well, you can say Tony Fernandez or what have you, but I mean, I think some of we just got to accept that this is a weak link, but it is no team is 100% strong everywhere, and this is just what we want to live it for a while, because this is just our reality. It's not that we want to, but there's no other option at this moment. So if we can get behind him, I think it makes more sense, because his weaknesses are not going to go away tomorrow, right? That said, though, to the point that Rashford doesn't track back, I don't think Rashford ever will track back. I mean, if he can just score goals and find his goal scoring boots, and Flick can get him that confidence back, I think that's weight in goal. But I don't think he'll be ever that person who's going to go all the way up and then all the way down and track and cover. I just don't think that's going to happen. So this challenge that Martin is facing, he's going to continue to face. Now the question is, when Lamine comes back, Lamine does track back a lot, massively. So it changes, the dynamics change, the way the game changes. But I think for the foreseeable future, as long as Lamine's not back, Rashford's going to play. And because Gavi and everybody's out, so Jared Martin is going to play. I think we're going to see more of this. The faster we can accept it and somehow find band-aid ways of just managing that out, I think that's the best way to probably go, because this criticism is not going to go away anytime fast.
Yeah, it was. I think his those flaws you're mentioning. It was evident in the first half, especially. But then to people's point who are writing in the comments, yeah, he did play well. We're not saying that he didn't play well. However, he's probably never going to be the level of Balde or a starting Barcelona left back. Right, that's what we're saying. Now there might be some discussion on him as a centre back, left centre back. We'll have in a back three or something, which could minimize his weaknesses, and it's a good way to go about it. But then Flick doesn't really play with a three at the back, not as a general structure. He does sometimes we sometimes morph into that structure, right? So when we do play, we do start with four at the back, and then it kind of morphs, right? The right back moves a bit forward because the right winger will move inwards, and then the left back will kind of shift um, towards the right, and you get a back three. And then what that means, however, is the left winger probably has to hold with because there's no one else to overlap there unless you peel a midfielder outside, but then you lose a body in midfield, and none of our midfielders are actually that comfortable, or well, they are comfortable out there, but they're not most optimally used outside on the wing, right? So in that scenario, you need the left winger to be the width holder. However, Rashford is not really a he can be a width holder and he can thrive if you give him open space and the ability to run at the opposition, then he can be a wide presence. But otherwise, you need him closer to the goal. So I think that's kind of the issue there. If you have a back three, you need a different type of winger, which we at the moment we just don't have, right? Because even Rafinha, if he's on the left, he thrives in a more of a minimum width setup. So in that respect, I don't think that will happen. So Martin, he has a cap on him. That's the thing. He has a cap on him. He's not bad, and he can obviously be useful, and he was good tonight. But there's a cap on him as a player at the moment. So
Hmm,
that's
there is a gap. No questions on that. Right now, let's talk about Kunde. Kunde was fantastic, yes. And it tells me like the first three Liga games he wasn't really picked up, and it was Garcia and Kubarsi and so on. But something tells me that maybe Flick is being deliberate about this season just to save the best players for the best situations or timing. Given we have a very thin squad and a roster, and from learnings from last year, when at the end of the season, as the injuries began to pile up, our season kind of faltered. So it might not be one of the things where like he's making that educated guess that okay, if I'm playing against X kind of a Liga side, I can save some of these players, keep them fresh, get the maximum out of them at Champions League games and what have you, and just keep the how much they rack up in number of minutes minimized to a particular instance. I don't know whether there's a truth to it, but based on what I saw today from Kunde in terms of just his capability, there was no reason why he couldn't have started the last three games. He was quite good today. He was really good,
Mhm.
intercepting, making the play, and what have you. What's your thought on that, Tom?
I would agree with the comment and obviously your observation as well. I think he was really, really good. Now, the reason why he hasn't played, I don't know, maybe he wasn't match sharp. Maybe, as you say, maybe it was just a thing of managing the minutes and maybe knowing that, okay, he's going to start against Newcastle. If Flick had this idea already in his mind, maybe he was kind of trying to get Kounde to be 100% both stamina wise and also match sharpness. So he was kind of dosing him up until that point. And luckily, we do have Eric Garcia, who seems to be a jack of all trades. He can be played anywhere across the back line, which is another player we can also touch upon later on. But Kounde, I mean, he gave the assist as well for Rashford's first goal, right?
Mhm,
So it was
mhm.
yeah. So there you have it. Tonight was a good display of what Kunde can bring to the table because defensively he's really good, like, especially when he has that line next to him, so the outline helping him defensively. He can hold his own. Gordon wasn't really at his best. Right? I thought he was kind of I don't know, kind of not really being able to control the ball well. He was a little sloppy in possession a bit, but then Kunde did really well to control that flank, as the comment says from Van Lee, and then the assist as well. That's what he does. He stays a bit deeper, and then he crosses the ball neatly into the box, and that's what he does. But yeah, let's look at the stats and see what the
Let's look
stats
at some
say. I
stats. I think, yeah, I mean, 64-38, I think possession wise, Barca did Barca things. But on XG, Newcastle were actually better than Barca. I was telling that it wasn't that Barca created tons and tons of choices. They didn't. And that is something that if you are going to nitpick, you can think about it that, okay, even with Leva and Rafinha up top, we couldn't really penetrate, which have been discussed. That whenever Lamine is not there, the creativity is missing, right? And maybe it
Mhm.
was one of those things. And Firmin wasn't having a very good game. Olmo wasn't there. So all the creative players who can create that those chances inside the box, a lot of them were missing today. Flick went with a very pragmatic, okay, try and test it, little bit will make it happen. But that just tells you that XG wise, Newcastle were actually better, right? And if you look
Mhm.
into just the match, momentum, and you can see the peaks and troughs. They quite, both teams had their chances when they had a period of ascendancy, and then they went in, and then they shifted back, or
Yeah.
what have you. So it was as a very one of those, ping your ball around in the midfield a lot, right? So there was a lot of long balls, there were a lot of clearances, and so it wasn't that champagne football. It wasn't those that slick, fast moving football that we like to see in Barcelona. But I think sometimes for these kind of games, this is exactly what is needed,
Mhm.
because sometimes
Mhm.
that style, you can get caught high up on the field. There's two counters, and that's it. Yeah, you've lost the game. And Flick obviously doesn't want to, start his campaign with that. So just probably think was quite pragmatic in the way he built it up. But what's your take when you look at those XG numbers, and also the others? Like you can see the number of saves, the shots, passes, anything that stands out to you, Tom?
I mean, the difference in XG doesn't really bother me that much. It's not a significant enough difference to ultimately make a difference, right? Both teams kind of had the same XG, and then we capitalized on ours better because we had a Marcus Rashford goal that was, I think the XG for that goal was like so tiny that it couldn't even be registered. So, I mean, those kind of shots they usually don't give you high XG numbers. So it's one of those goals that don't really score often. You can't really expect to happen every single game. Now the other saves, goalkeeper saves, is interesting because Jean Garcia tonight, again, he showed that even when you have these moments of weakness, and Newcastle did create a couple of those um, scenarios in which they had an opportunity on goal, but then Jean Garcia is the fail safe, the safety net behind the offside trap, behind the counter pressing and all of that stuff. So you have this player who can who has the hero gene. Once again, I'm saying the hero gene because he has that in him to win the game for you, to save the game for you, if you will. Um, and the less we need him, the better. But then when we do need him, I think he can be there, and he's showed that tonight as well. What I would like to look for Dev here. Can you find individual player stats because I really would like to see Araujo and his dueling and his overall stats because I think he was picked for a very specific job tonight. And we all know that what Araujo does. We all know what Araujo is usually picked for. And I think when it comes to physicality and winning duels, I think even for the second goal, Rashford's second goal, I think it came from an Araujo one header in our own half, and then the ball kind of pinged back to Rashford, and Rashford finished the chance. But yeah, I think I would love to see. Yeah, there's no individual stats, huh? It doesn't matter. But I think Araujo did really well in his
Today Araujo did
dueling,
really
in
well.
his
I
tackling.
thought he just
Mhm,
plays his role to perfection, and if you can see like duels, I genuinely
mhm,
I cannot imagine that Barca won 56% aerial duels over
mhm,
Newcastle. They have like 6'5" plus people in that team,
mhm,
and yet Barca has won more of those. Even from a ground duel perspective, you can see that it was thought through, that they planned, and that physicality that we were talking about, um, like we won actually much more ground duels and aerial duels. So that itself tells you everything that you need to know about physicality and non-physicality. And obviously
mhm,
in this, Araujo played a massive role. Now if you look into defending as well, tackles won 55, majority of these were being led by him. uh, Kubarsi was just taking care of the passing and connecting. He wasn't really doing that much of the tackling that Sauce to say, and so on. So if you look into total tackles, interceptions, recoveries, all of these, we were better than Newcastle, which is not
mhm,
what I thought would happen at all, given just the way they play the game, the physicality that has been talked about massively for a long time, and all that. And so that just tells you that um, today, I think Araujo did a phenomenal job
Hmm.
in terms of
Hmm.
just holding and just, you know, just going at it. Like 3 years ago when you
Yeah.
could count on him to shut out the defense completely. Now, did he do that in that sense? Probably that level, probably no. But I think he did enough to not let Newcastle create that many chances, like real chances. Of course, XG is there, a couple of
Yeah.
goals that could have happened, but that can happen anywhere. You can have a debate about that. But overall, I think he did everything that was required to fundamentally marshal the defense, ensure that there are no secret shocks or sudden shocks or what have you, and just held it together.
Mm. Yeah, I think Araujo's his problem is still the same as last season, where last season we talked a lot. Dev, we talked about Araujo being a situational pick, and I
Yeah.
think he still is. That's still his biggest problem. When you have a player of his profile, and we have a coach of like Flick who has his clear preferences, Araujo won't be in that picture in the starting lineup all the time. But there will be games where Flick will be like, okay, maybe now I need Araujo. Maybe for this opponent I need Araujo. Maybe for this situation I need Araujo. Maybe for this game state I need Araujo. But he's not like, let's say, Pedri. Pedri is for
Right.
every opponent, every situation, every game phase, everything, right? And Araujo is not that kind of a center back, right? So he's not someone that you can play anytime. But you can, but then in some games his flaws will be more or less visible, right? And sometimes Flick doesn't want to take that risk, that chance. But tonight he made a big decision, and once again it paid off. But one more thing that I caught when he was scrolling was the goals prevented, and João Garcia prevented 1.2 goals in XG worth, right? So that is massive. Put
And yeah,
any other goalkeeper that we had, like
we would have
Peña,
probably,
Chesney, and Ter
yeah.
Stegen, and you concede maybe two goals or one goal at least, one more goal
I
at
think
least.
yeah, but again, it's uncharitable to say it because he's not in the game, so
Yeah,
you can't really say it like that. But
yeah,
just what I felt was
yeah,
without Garcia, and if there was Ter Stegen, this could have been a 2-2 or a 3-2 game as well, based on
yeah,
the
yeah.
chances that Newcastle had created.
Mm-hmm,
Okay, let's look
mm-hmm.
at the Araujo heat map, and you can see like he really marshaled this area. Like you can see that middle and the right half of defense, right up to the center line. He was pretty much active, right? And if you look into the number of time interceptions, clearances 10, ground
Mm-hmm.
duels 1, 3, aerial duels 1, 6.
Oh yeah, the
Yes,
aerial
he lost.
duels. I think that's the thing. See, especially you said it, Dev. There was Newcastle had so many tall players, big players who were banking on winning those duels, but Araujo just wouldn't let them. Even for the last goal, our second goal, it was the aerial duel from Araujo that led to the second goal. So
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
So if he won the ground duels, he won the aerial duels. He wasn't inadvertently like very didn't create that many number of fouls. It's just one. So he was tactical
Mm-hmm.
in his approach. He did lose a little bit of position, but in that press, anybody would lose position. I don't think that's critical. But then look at the accurate passes. We always talk about his non-ability to do passes, but 86% for a defender for a CB, I think it's pretty good for a Champions League away game, right? And so on. Again, long balls, accurate three. So if you look at all these numbers, and his overall scoring, I think he put a solid shift today, honestly,
Yeah.
and he was the right choice for this team to be the starter and to go through at the end. I think this is something that we are going to see all the season because I don't think Flick will have a stuck. Okay, these are my four defenders unless somebody gets injured, nobody's being changed, right? I don't think that's how he works. He does work on merit through merit. So I think this will give Araujo a few more opportunities based on what's coming up in La Liga and other games as well, because this will go on for a while. I think we're going to see a little bit more of him, and that's a good thing because I like him. I really like him, and he has had the toughest. Last year it wasn't the best for him. So I hope he does find some of that intelligence, some of that excitement back. I hope he finds that interest back in the game, and if he does, we've all seen what he's capable of 2 seasons ago,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my bet is he's going to come good. And we'll see a lot more performances from him this season like this. But Dominic, final thoughts before we move on from Araujo.
Yeah, I think especially in the Champions League, that's his stage to shine because that's where Flick is more likely to be a bit more cautious, more likely to maybe opt for a more defensive approach. Not overly defensive, but maybe to have someone of Araujo's profile in the back line just in case, right?
Yep.
It's always nice to beat the team on the front foot, and we were the team on the front foot tonight as well for the large portions of the night. But then it's all about controlling the moments in the Champions League because in the Champions League the rule of thumb is that both teams will have their moments. Now,
Yep.
how you control your moments in either of the boxes is crucial to win a game in Europe. And when you have difference maker inside every or both boxes, then you have higher chances of winning, obviously. And we have Joan Garcia and then Ron Araujo in our own box, which kind of gives you a bit more confidence to start with, right from the bat, right? Especially when he's playing like this. I know people will say, "Oh, the bozo gene and whatnot," and yeah, Araujo does have a mistake in him. Sometimes, yeah, that just happens, but that's football. But when he's the real Araujo that we know and love, because let's face it, at one point everyone was in love with Araujo a couple of seasons ago. When he's the real Araujo, then he's a perfect fit for this kind of game and this kind of tactical setup from Flick.
Also, look at the passes. Like we often like Araujo, better stats than Kubarsi for this game on passes. He lost more possession, but Kubarsi was five. And look at this. This is, I mean, even Kubarsi was winning four aerial,
Hmm.
games, and it's crazy ground
Yeah,
duels. But if you just and we shouldn't do it, but we just having a conversation. I think side by side, if you look at their the responsibilities that they had, Araujo they did better from that perspective. And I think that creates a case for him to start many other games because there is a section of the start of the crowd, and we even ourselves have sometimes questioned: is it time? Do we get somebody else or what have you? But I think with this performance, he has bought himself some time and some well-deserved grace, and people are going to watch him. And if he can, counter resurrect himself and build the season through, I think he's got a great future up ahead from that perspective, right? So that's Pau Kubarsi and Ronald Araujo. Let's look at Frankie De Jong. That's the third question. But look at the ground that he has covered in the middle, right?
yeah,
And this is what we were talking about. Like he had that ability to do the ball hogging that Dom talked about. But even with that, his ability to get it out, his ability to beat the press, and his ability to be that linchpin from where the attack generates. I think that's what makes him so special for this team. And if you look into the numbers as well, expected assists like 0.18, accurate passes 99%.
99%. Imagine
99%.
that
In
against a
that
press as
in
Newcastle.
that
Yeah,
press. Yeah, in that press. Like that was a heavy press in that. And he's managing 99% of accuracy. Again, look at the long balls accuracy, 3 out of 2, dribble attempts, round duels, 8 of them won, right? And this is against what is primarily a very physical team in the Premier League. Then and he's winning those ground duels, 8 of them. Didn't lose possession that many times. Yes, committed some tactical fouls or what have you, but it just shows you that he stuck to his job. He was given a job, he stuck to it, and that had a massive role to play in how that final score turned up. Obviously, we had two good goals from one person, what have you, and we didn't really dominate the whole game. But I think this shows the impact that that Frankie had, and why when he is fit, Flick always tends to support him.
yeah. He goes. I mean, there's no at the moment with the available midfielders. It's always going to be Pedri and Frankie, and I think that partnership works really well at the moment, especially with our tendency to kind of try and keep the ball and still play out of that pressure because we were tonight. We really tried to still stick to our guns, and you have to do that because when you have players like Frankie and Pedri in that midfield, you have to try that. And I think it paid off. And Frankie, to his credit, he won't get the credit from everyone because still there's people saying, okay, he wasn't good or he was bad, but he did his job perfectly. And I think his partnership with Pedri is what's was currently the best news for us fans because they are forming a duo that can actually be complementary, that can play
To
together,
each other,
and they can
yes.
and they can actually be something for the future as well. I mean, obviously depends on Frankie's contract situation, and all, but that's a different story for a different
Now let's look at Jules Kounde, another player who did pretty well today. You can see the expected goals, the number of the minutes played, any played through.
time.
Three clearances. Look at his heat map. He literally like just ran his lungs out on this flank,
Hmm.
right? And that's his job, so he did that. But in the absence of Lamine, I don't think that creativity that generally comes through these runs, because he does it in every game, it was a little bit missing, because we didn't just have that player to take advantage of all these runs that he's doing, the effort that he's putting in. But all said and
Hmm.
done, I think again solid shift. Again, you can see aerial duels, four of them won. These are small, like 5 foot whatever people, and this just goes to say that this treatise or this conversation that we had, that okay, you've got to have big players and they will help you win the aerials. Well, here's proof that that's not necessarily true. If you have the technique, if you understand the ball, if you read the game properly, I think it doesn't matter. I mean, you can, as long as you know the technique, you can still manage to do well. So you can see the aerial duels. You can see another, ground duels. Not that many foul or anything. Clean player, accurate passes, 83, not the best, but he was under a lot of pressure on the flank. But that's just basically what he did, and I think he had a very telling impact on the final scoreline that Barca had.
Hmm. Yeah, sometimes it's very it's ungrateful to just look at the stats because they can be very deceiving without context. And yes, obviously sometimes they don't really favor the player, which is in Kunde's case is true. I think he had a much
Yeah.
better game than the stats would show you. And you can make that case for many players. And Kunde is definitely one of them because overall the way he handled that flank and he was under a lot of press, as you said, Dev, not just off the ball from Newcastle's pressing, but also he had to mark players that are tricky, that are pacey, that will go at you, run at you, and they will try to dribble past you. And Kunde did really well to actually defend that flank. So I'm very happy that was the case. So
Well, that
yeah,
gives
yeah,
you an
really
idea
proud of him.
about, like how many people, like a few of the people who we wanted to cover in terms of the opportunities today. But let's look at some of the other quotes that have come true. Let's start. Observe the defensive line was zipper. Yes, we already mentioned this. Hansi, and this is not the first game. He did it in the La Liga first game as well. He's not
Hmm.
going with that 43-meter line, right? And I fundamentally think that's because he's realized that he doesn't have the personnel to make it successful, because the offside trap is not working with 100% changing people. So I think he has been circumspect, and I think in a couple of games now he has helped the high line back massively. It does impact our ability to create chances, and that we could see we could not really create chances throughout the game. Right, he was not a xG galore, but he also nullified a lot of the threat that comes through by the long balls and the second balls. So I think he did
Mm.
both of those. It was 100%. He didn't have a high line. We already talked about it. And he also didn't have a high line to that level in one of the La Liga games this season.
Yeah, and to our point, Dev, that what we discussed earlier was that Flick had kind of predicted this happening. And there's a quote now from Flick after the game. He says, "I expected Newcastle to play the way they played in the first 15 minutes. From then on, we managed to get back on track. My staff and I talked to the players about the importance of not conceding a goal in the first 20 minutes." And this is it. We knew that this would happen, right? We knew they would come guns blazing in the opening of each of the halves. And those were the periods that we had to be ourselves as well, because when you start playing their own game, that's when things fall apart. But no, we knew it would happen, and we stuck to the plan, and it worked. So I'm very happy that Flick and the players had the maturity to actually not only recognize that, but also not panic under that pressure, because it's very easy to panic under that pressure. And then,
No, I 100% agree. Like, I think good solid shift.
right, yeah, right,
So,
okay, let's see what else.
and then we have a couple of more before we sign out. We have been already talking about for 45 minutes. What did we talk about? My God. Anyway,
Yeah,
if Rashford begins to pick up form, what's your front four? Will we ever have a front four? I think we'll still go with three, with a false nine
yeah.
kind of a thing. I, I don't know, man. This is a hard one. I do see Lewandowski sitting a lot more this season than he has ever in the past. So it won't be an automatic starter. You want to play all the game. and from top to bottom. I think that's going to happen. I do believe that there is a concerted effort in trying to groom Ferran Torres to that possible area. So obviously he gets to play a lot, but I don't think even he is the answer. So it's one of those things. But I think it will be very much dependent on the team that Hansi places. Depending on the team and what he feels, the skill set that he requires in the front three, whether maybe it's breaking a low block, or maybe it's running down time, or maybe it's something else, right? I think he will choose what he can within that boundary that he's been given, and then we're going to see a lot of changes. It won't be this. This is my thing. I don't think it'll be the same people in the same place for many years. No, I don't think so.
Hmm. Yeah, I think when it comes to Gala, like the strongest lineup is still gonna be the front three, and I still think it's gonna be Lamine, Lewandowski, and Rafinha when everyone's fit and everyone's rested and all that stuff. So in that case, it's those three players at the moment. But then the fourth guy you reference him, I'm guessing that only you mean the number 10 behind them potentially. At the moment, it's Fermin Lopez because Dani Olmo is just doing Dani Olmo things, and he's not really, he's not really firing on all cylinders. So at the moment, it's Fermin Lopez behind them. And I think the extension of the question is: would Rashford come into as the fourth player and kind of push Rafinha to number 10? It is one scenario that we can consider, but at the moment, I don't think that's going to happen. Now, the similar thing that we saw tonight will happen with that scenario as well, where you have the number 10 kind of a bit lost and disconnected. And well, yes, it can give you some firepower moving forward, but then it sometimes tonight it felt like we were playing with 10 players because Furman as number 10 was so disconnected that we couldn't find him. Yes,
Yeah,
he was
somehow
making
something
moves.
was
Yeah,
wrong today.
yeah, yeah. So in those situations, you need that guy, the third midfielder, to actually be in connection with the other two midfielders, just the rest of the team a bit more. So that's what I disliked about Furman as number 10 tonight. But in a general bigger picture, I think Furman still has that spot ahead of Olmo and
He
ahead of
does.
even the
He
yeah,
does,
yeah, ahead of
for
him.
sure.
So
For
that's
sure.
what
I
I would
don't
say.
think. Yeah, I think Ferran is our best off the bench sub, and I think he'll be more and more used in that manner. That's just my take. I may be wrong. What was impressive how he managed the extra 7 minutes despite pressure. Yes, you're right. And we talked about it. That I think this is one of the learnings that Barca has from last season, that
Hmm.
they can just manage the tempo and manage the game instead of outscoring everyone by like 16 goals. They realize that okay, now we can win this if we can just control a few parameters, and they're trying to do that. So I think yes, um, uh, it was impressive from how he managed those 7 minutes, how he managed no real danger, and how he managed the people to accept that. Right, it's very hard to get the incumbent people to stop doing what they're doing because it's yeah. So I think yeah, that's good stuff there.
Yeah, with
Last
yeah.
last question. Go
But,
ahead. Dom.
oh, this one. Yeah, I think the whole atmosphere, the stadium, the away game, and the late goal not crumbling under pressure in the final minutes is a clear sign of progress. It's a clear sign that Barca are learning their mistakes, and that's kind of what that is. Okay, last question. Let's
Right.
see.
Final question. Seeing the hurt from Rashford, do you guys think that Flick will consider as a Rashford as a nine position? Maybe, but we have had the nine. We have had Danny as nine. We have had, I think, almost sometimes Eric plays as a nine when he's up there and trying to score goals at the end when we're not getting a score. Lewandowski is going to be a nine, and he's not going anywhere, like at least this season. So my question was, maybe, but would he be able to put Rashford as a nine this season? I don't think so. Not until a few departures happen. But Tom, you understand the tacticalities of football better. What do you think?
I would actually the first thing I would say is I would refer you guys to our blog piece on Marcus Rashford, where we distinctly discuss Marcus Rashford as a number 9 position and what he would have to do and what a team around him would have to look like for Rashford at 9 to work. But to answer your question somewhat, is that yes, it can work. Yes, he has some of the traits to play there. But to Dev's point, in the pecking order, I don't think he's up there. Right? It will be Lewandowski, obviously, for
It
most
will be
games,
Lewandowski
and for
mostly.
the biggest games, yeah, it will be Lewandowski. As long as he can actually physically handle that responsibility throughout the season, then it will be Ferran Torres, who kind of has earned that spot. He's not the superstar number nine that we would need Lewandowski as a direct replacement to be. However, he is someone who's earned his
It's
way
coming up.
to
He's
number.
definitely
Yeah,
earning it.
yeah,
Coming up. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. 100%.
So
Yeah.
the way that flick works is that he will give him the chance because he's earned it. And then we did see Dani Olmo as as Dev says sometimes in that position as well. But then Dani Olmo has fallen off a bit. I think at best you see Rashford as the third or the fourth option, which means he won't be there often. So that's the kind
Yep.
of the short answer to the question. For the rest of the details, just go and see our blog, read our blog because there's you can find all the details there. I think
Okay, let's
this is
take
a good.
one more on Vlahovic because we keep talking about. I think yesterday's Juve game was pretty interesting. I think that was the most exciting game in this round of matches, the 4-4 with Dortmund. There's been a lot of questions, and I know you were scouting Vlahovic when we were doing the striker analysis for Barcelona. The question is obviously, can he be a potential target for us as we go into next season?
I think financially, yeah. If his contract runs out, right? Okay, yeah, it's on a free, Vlahovic on a free, or Leao or Nico. It's difficult because now you are in a position where you have to strengthen two positions, like two roles. So the left winger position is currently being reinforced by Rashford, but then he's a lone player. Barca going to buy Rashford as a longer term kind of left winger option, or are they going to go for a big name left winger? So what is the higher priority? And now was that's why this summer was the perfect summer to buy a left winger because we still had Lewandowski. But next summer we will have to buy number. Otherwise, you lose Lewandowski and you don't have someone who can replace him like for like. Obviously, there might not be a player that can replace him like for like, but you have to get a bit closer than Ferran Torres, right? Because I mean, all the respect in the world to Ferran Torres, but he's not a Lewandowski replacement long term
No,
at
he
least.
isn't. He isn't. And I don't think he
So
ever will be.
I think in this situation, when you look at Leao or Nico or Vlahovic gets points just for the fact that he's a number nine, unless you want to play Leao as a number nine, which is possible, but then it's a kind of a different number nine altogether. It's a different story. We'll tackle that one a bit later or a different time. But Vlahovic would not be a terrible option. Now I have not seen enough of him to say, but there is stuff about Vlahovic that I do like. Now on a free, that's the part that might actually interest Barcelona because we are suckers
You
for
can
those
only do
deals,
three.
right? Yeah, yeah, I know. So there you have it. I don't have much more to say about that. I do like Vlahovic now. Is he at the same level as the number nines that have been floating around this summer? I don't know. I wish we would have gotten on some action on those number nines because there were some players that I really liked from those people that actually moved this summer. But it was not to be because of our finances and so on. So we'll
Well,
see.
that's about it, guys. From us today, we will now get ready for Portala's ball with Getafe in the league, and that will be at the Estadi Johan Cruyff. And we'll be back for that. We'll be covering that, and then we have, I think, then the next one is PSG at the Montjuic. That will be interesting
Oh, yeah.
in terms of many things. So do tune in and look out. We'll be also doing coverage on these blogs on on these games with the stats and some analysis, and we'll be sharing that on the site. So please do check it out when you get a moment. And yeah, for me, it's take care, stay safe. Visca Barca. Anything from you go down before we sign off?
Nothing particular. Just guys, follow us on our blog, subscribe to the blog, versus YouTube channel. Follow us on X and other social media platforms. We are everywhere. We're trying to restart everything. So Your support, as ever, is highly appreciated. We love that you. There's almost 3,000 of you here tonight, and as that warms our hearts. And just keep
Thank you
watching
so
us,
much.
and we'll keep making and we'll keep making content.
Yeah.
That's it for us, guys.
So thank you. Super happy under all given circumstances. I would have taken a 2-1 win before the
Mm,
game had I known that this would happen. So super happy. First win. Nobody got injured. Nobody ran out their socks. It was okay. It was contained. Team's back. We got the first 3 points. League, we are all right. Now it's time for Hetafe. And we look forward to Paris Saint-Germain in the
mm.
next version of this, Champions League games. And till then, take care. And we'll see you back right here on the next one. Take care, guys.
Yeah, take care.